Folks, another week, another exciting creative financing with JB, another entrepreneur. As we talked about, everybody's making a step, everybody's making a run to do something new, something important, and make a change. And as I said before, it wasn't easy, but it's something we have to do. And when we do it, we just feel so good. I got Angelita Mosley this week. I'm excited for her. She's jumped into this real estate game. It's all good, but she made a jump from a corporate career into full-time real estate, and it probably wasn't easy. So I'm not gonna steal her the joy, but I'm gonna let you find out a little bit about her. She's gonna give you a little bit of background, and then we're gonna get into some questions here, and so y'all know. Angelita, go on, take it away. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, so I'm excited too, Johnny. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. Kind of like Johnny said, I hail from the corporate world. I was there for many, many years, about 15 to 17 years in the corporate world. And I think COVID I don't want to be redundant with this whole ideal, but COVID kind of taught us, we got to have multiple streams. We got to figure out how we can, earn funds on our terms as opposed to, someone else saying, hey, we don't need you anymore. So while fortunately that was not my story, it was definitely an eye opener for me. So so I hail from Delaware. I'm licensed in 3 states, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. I absolutely love this real estate thing. I didn't start full time. I actually started off as part time. And I don't want to get ahead of your questions.
No,
go ahead. I have a small story of how I kind of got started here, and it is nothing like I thought it was going to be at all. I'm going to be really fun. This is going to sound funny, but I absolutely mean it. Like, I thought it was stilettos and red lipstick and showing homes. That's what I thought it was all about. But boy, oh boy, that is like 1% of the game here for those who have lipstick. So I quickly found out that it, wasn't going to be the walk in the park that I thought it was going to be, but I had always had a passion for real estate and learning more about how that goes. So I kind of just delved in and got started, and here I am. So, yeah.
What made you, Angie, just make that jump? I know it's scary. Permanent income to you're depending on providing for your family, your business, on selling houses.
Yeah. So, just to kind of piggyback off of what I was kind of saying a moment ago, I didn't really get in the game to sell homes. I got in the game because of my personality. I always feel like if you can do it, I can probably do it better. So I had a very small property that I used to own back in the day. It wasn't worth much at all, but I wanted to, kind of get rid of it at that time. And I had hired a realtor to take care of that for me. And after a few weeks have passed by, I didn't get a lot of movement on it. So I was kind of figure out, like, what can I do to help? Like, I'm always hands-on. What can I do to do this? And after, like I said, it turned, few weeks turned into a month or so, and I was like, this thing is not moving. I'm going to do it on my own. So I kind of let her know, thanks for your help, but I'm good. I'm going to figure this out on my own. And lie to you not, I sold that thing within weeks. And that's when I realized, like, hey, you may be onto something here. So that's how I kind of got into real estate. And it was really because also I have my LLC. It's called AZA Real Estate Properties. And what my company does is we acquire properties and we fix them up and renovate them. And then based upon the need of the person or, in the market or the economy, what we do is we'll lease them out or sell them altogether. So with that personality that I have of I can do it myself, I was like, I'm just going to get licensed because if all it takes is for me to pay a couple $100 for a system, I can do it myself. That's why I really got into real estate. But then I quickly learned that, and those who have the real estate background know, like, you have to be under a broker for X amount of years. And because I had to do that, I was like, well, I might as well sell, while I'm doing this. So that's kind of how I got into the selling piece of it. In terms of taking that lunge, again, I was in corporate America for probably up to September of 2024. Wow. And some changes. Yeah, I had to make some changes because it was tough, managing that full-time career as well as managing being a realtor as well. And, business just began to pick up a lot. And it was just kind of hard to manage. And I knew that I could do it, and I was confident in the fact that I could do it. So that's really
Mhm.
sealed it for me in terms of getting out there and doing it. I'm like, you can actually do this full time, so I kind of felt it in my belly, and
Mhm.
I kind of let it, play itself out. And eventually I was like, I can't do the dual thing anymore. So it's time for me to make a decision. So I made a decision, and here I am, and absolutely loving it. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
So what was the most scariest thing in this jump here? I mean, just jumping out there. What was scary about it? What was in your mind to really think, say, yo, this is gonna be a difference?
Well, those of us who are not just in corporate, but working in general, we know we are
Mhm.
guaranteed a paycheck. Whether you're paid weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, we're guaranteed a paycheck. So it's like guaranteed income. And so the scariest part was not knowing, like, what if something happens? Like, how am I supposed to manage not having that guaranteed income? I knew every 2 weeks, I knew what to expect and how to
Right.
expect it, right? But that was pretty scary for me. So, but I'm definitely a woman of faith. So,
Right.
after, praying and thinking about it more, so I decided that, what, you can do this. You can do this. It's going to require, some faith here, but you can do it. And I did it. So that was the scariest thing, I should say, is just not knowing, like, how consistent, just being used to that every 2 weeks, you know what I mean, for forever. And now it's like, it's based upon your performance type of thing. So yeah, that was kind of scary. That was kind of scary for me.
Do you have a
Yeah.
website, that people can kind of take that vision that you had and probably grow off of it?
Yeah. So I actually do not have a website right now. Sorry,
Mhm.
guys. I don't
Mhm.
have a website. I do have social media.
Social
So
media.
yeah, I kind of try to post as often as I can there, but not a website at the moment. But I can definitely be found, or you can see my work on my social media handles.
And what's your social media handle so we can
Yeah,
post them? People might want to
sure.
follow us.
Sure. So it's really pretty simple. It's Angelita Mosley on Instagram, and it's ITS. My name is spelled ANGELITA MOSLEY. So it's Angelita Mosley on Instagram, and on Facebook you can find me just by simply typing in Angelita Mosley, and that's it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's gonna be interesting. People want to follow, they want to see that vision. It's a visionary type of spirit that you have in this business here. And if you don't have it, you get stuck. And some people say, Angie, I mean, how do you get customers? What do you do? Do you go knocking on doors? I mean, what was
Yeah,
your
so
first move?
that's a great question. So that was another thing that kind of made me nervous too, to take the plunge. I mean, just hearing how everyone else did it and how everyone else gains their clientele, um, uh, me thinking that I had to follow in those footsteps,
Right,
that made me nervous, because what you do may not work for me.
right.
And to be completely honest, the secret over here is literally just being myself. By nature,
Mhm.
I'm a very talkative person. I'm not
Right,
shy, not by a long shot. I don't mind starting up conversations. And usually in those conversations, it comes up, you know what I mean? And if it doesn't, I'll bring it up.
right.
Yeah, absolutely, real estate too. So, once you gain your a part of your clientele that way, and that we all know about referrals, that's obviously very contributive to my clientele as well. And it's always about, treating that client with giving them 5-star service, right? So as long as they feel great and you give them what they need, they're going to tell their cousin or their coworker
Mhm.
or anyone else, they may come across. So, referrals obviously are a very large part of how I capture a clientele as well. And then, it's always word of mouth, oh, I saw you, or not just word of mouth, but social media, I saw you on social media. I get a lot of clientele that way as well,
Right.
So yeah.
Somebody asked, then sent me the question, what is the typical process once you start working with somebody? What can they expect?
So, for me, I'm big on education. I mean, as a matter of fact, in the corporate world, I work in higher education. So I'm
Mhm.
big on education. And I find that many people are just not aware of the process. So one of
Mhm.
my first things that I like to do is just
Mhm.
inform the person, kind of educate them on how the process goes. Because believe it or not, people think that it's just this really strenuous process
Right.
on getting pre-approved or, going through, and it's not. I say, hey, call Johnny, talk to him about the number side of it, but kind of explaining to them that it's not as
Right.
difficult, as people may think it is. It's just those major things, like income, credit, that sort of thing. But the first thing that I like to do is educate my clients. And once I, begin to kind of ease their concerns or their apprehensions, then we kind of begin to discuss the process. But
Wow.
it's at first educating them first. The people
Yeah.
have to know. They got to
No.
know. Yeah.
And that takes time, folks. That don't happen overnight. It's a little bit because it can be overwhelming.
It
It,
can, and we can't assume. We can't
right.
assume that, like, it doesn't matter what age bracket you're in. You just can never assume that people know, because some people just don't know, and I'm just saying, for example, if you have, someone coming from a larger city like New York, where you're not really buying a whole bunch there, you're renting a bunch,
Right.
and they could be in whatever age bracket, but you got to just treat everybody with, obviously, respect. But we're just treating everybody like they're kind of new to this, and you got to educate them and inform them first.
Right.
That makes
Next
sense.
question is, how will you make the process less stressful for me if we start working? I mean, how can you calm my nerves? I'm a nervous wreck. I never did this before.
Yeah. So when I hear that, the funniest thing is a client that we just closed on last week, right? And if you get a chance, look at his Google review, and he will tell you, like, he was a nervous wreck. You know what I mean? Just anxiety through the roof. And one of the things that I like to do is be accessible, because when you're nervous and you want to reach out, you want to answer right then and there. I just think that, being accessible to someone who is like a nervous wreck, or someone who's really anxious about the process, and just knowing, what, I'm not too familiar with what this is, but I know I can call Angelita. Or you can even be speaking to the lender, and you have a question, and you're like, hey, I really am still kind of nervous about speaking to the lender. Can you help me understand this process? So I think I like to think that I make it easier for people for just being accessible. Like, call me, text me, obviously you can email me, but it's better if we can kind of talk it through via text or but just kind of being present for, questions that you might have.
And it's another one. What trends are you seeing in the local housing market right now? What's changing from what we probably seen 3 to 6 months ago?
Right now, homes are staying on the market longer. That's the trend that I'm seeing. So I think people would call it more of a buyer's market, So even with some of the listings that I have, I'm noticing that they're staying on the market longer, as opposed to 3 to 6 months ago. You oftentimes would be in a multiple offer scenario, which is great for the seller. But not so much for the buyer, because, you got to be competitive. But right now, what I'm personally seeing is just that the homes are staying on the market longer, which is excellent for buyers, because I do represent both sides. I'm a buyer's representative and a seller's representative as well. And when I'm representing the buyers in transaction, the longer their home has been on the market, oftentimes it does give you more negotiating power. And that's something that my client and I would talk about in terms of what strategies we would use to help them purchase the home that they're looking for.
They said, why are homes staying on the market longer now? Is it something going on based on the interest rates, or is it just somebody not eager to sell?
I can speak to some of the feedback that I received from my clientele. I just had one who said that she wanted to wait until the interest rates lower. And then another reason why is because of apprehensions and people having fear and not knowing that the process is not as difficult as you think it is. I mean, obviously there are standards that need to be met in order to purchase a home. But I think oftentimes, and Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't need the 800 credit score. You know what I mean? That people, you don't need this perfect score. I mean, we love that, but we're in the business of, creating creative financing and creating solutions for you. So another reason would be is because people just don't know. They're thinking that it's just this long, difficult process. that they have to meet, and they're just not aware. So again, that's where that education piece comes in at. I encourage people, like, even if we're just talking and they're not even thinking about buying a house, or, I'm just like, still just give me a call so we can talk. And so I can just kind of, share what I know, because what you think may be difficult is not. And again, another client, same thing, we just kind of met in passing, begin to talk. He thought it was going to be super difficult. Just put him in a home on a Friday. So, and it wasn't long at all. I think the process took all but 45 days. So, people are apprehensive because they're not aware. But again, that's what I'm here for.
Hey, Simone and Nicole, they join the podcast. We just want to pass Angelita's number across the screen, her email. Reach out to her if you have any questions so you can get those answered. You don't have to ask them tonight, but I want y'all to have that. You see her handle for the Instagram. You'll see her Facebook come up, but also her phone number, and just drop some info at Angelita. Am I saying that right?
So sure, no. So it's info at soldbyangelita.com. So info at soldbyangelita.com. Info at soldbyangelita.com. Yep, you got it. And then, again, my contact number is there on the screen as well. I can be reached at my mobile number at 302-387-7614.
Yeah, so it's good to ask those questions. And, I know everybody might have a lot more in depth of, what's going on. How can I check the market? Angelita, I want to go out there, and, why should I go out there? And that's a conversation y'all should have, reach out to find out how I can get there. But we had another question is, what's your strategy for navigating in a hot or slow market? I mean, how do you maintain?
Right. So it just depends on which market we're in. And like I said, for on the seller side, it's a slower market. So again, the strategy with that is just doing research on that particular home, knowing what the client needs. And then based upon what the client needs, based upon the type of home and how long it's been on the market, then I would appropriately know, how exactly to attack. And when I say attack, I mean helping that person to achieve what they want to achieve in terms of a slow market. So the strategy for what was the other one? I'm sorry. It was strategy for the slow market and
hot market, when the market's hot.
Okay. So it's hot. To me, it's hot right now for buyers. So do I have free speech here? Just give me a call. The home that you're looking at, you know what I mean? Let me know. Give me a call. Shoot me a text message or email, whatever have you. Reach out to me, and we'll take a look at that home together. And in that way, we can kind of develop a strategy from there. But to be completely honest, everyone's scenario is different. So it just depends on, what the particular buyer is bringing to the table. If you're coming with more, we can move in a different direction. If you're coming with less, then we'll move in a different direction. So in my opinion, there's not just a straight shoot strategy, everybody's scenario is different. But again, I just encourage everyone, no matter what your scenario is, you give me a call, and between Johnnie and I, we'll figure it out. We'll get creative and we'll figure it out. Yeah.
And folks, it's not a black and white type of scenario. Everybody's different. You might have an aggressive seller that's ready to sell. You might have a seller that wants that price. You have that buyer that kind of want to see what's happening. They hearing news. And then you have that buyer say, I just need to be in the house. I need to get in there. I need to stop paying somebody else's mortgage, but I need to be in a house. I need to stabilize my life. And, when you come to that, those are conversations that we're going to have with you. How soon are you coming ready to move? Are you 60 days out? Are you 30 days? Are you immediately? When does your lease end? Those are questions that's going to come up. And so we'll know where you're at. So when the market's moving, you have to take guidance from the professional. So, you have Angelita here when you go and see in the house, and she said, hey, the seller is sold on this price.
Yeah.
they want that.
And that's funny that you say that, Johnny, because I'm literally in a current scenario like that now where, it's a property and it's a trust property. So, with them, like they're just sold on what the number that they have. But, my buyer needs a little bit of assistance and my buyer is in love with this home. So again, just trying to come up with a strategy where I'm able to meet the seller's needs as well. Even though I'm representing the buyer in this transaction, in my opinion, a good realtor is going to be able to negotiate where both parties are happy, both parties are pleased. So literally in the middle of negotiations, trying to make sure that the seller meets their net, and then that my buyer at the same time, gets the assistance, the seller's assistance or seller's concessions that they need to make it to the settlement table. So, not to, bring in a mute point, but it really does depend on the scenario, but negotiating and strategy is everything. It's everything.
And that's important that she said that, if you need money, you got to let, us know where you're at with your money, so we know, Angelina know when she's writing up a contract, how to negotiate that contract. That's part of negotiations to where you're going to say, let me see what they're going to might do. And no, come with your best and final offer and say, hey, Angelina, I thought my money was going to be this, but I'm short $2,000 or $3,000. Work something out there to get that done.
Mm-hmm. And just to speak to that a little more, Johnny, that's another great point. Just working with another client where, normally this individual would go in, they have the funds, but normally they would go in and how do I say this word? They were like lowball, if I can say it like that. And they would kind of play. They would play around with it, But again, in some scenarios, as an experienced agent, I know, by speaking with the seller's agent, I kind of know if this is one of those scenarios where you probably don't want to play. You probably want to do exactly what you said, Johnny. Come in with your best offer. You know what I mean? This is not one of those things that we want to, teeter around or play around, Right. So that is just important to know, or for an agent to, to know, whether or not, this is the type of transaction where you can have some wiggle room, or some you just don't. So yeah.
And somebody asked, how will you help me prepare to sell my home? My home, I think it looks great. I think it's ideal. It suits me. I got the space I want. But you might come in and say, hey, we got a little bit of clutter here. You got a little, but it's too busy in here. How would you help me navigate that is the question.
Yeah. So first things first, when I'm representing a seller, again, I go back to that education base where I make them aware of what the market looks like. And again, what's super duper valuable to you, I'm very sensitive to that and I respect that, but someone else may not see it at that value. And that's where the market comes in. So where you may think that your home is, or can be, listed, I'm just throwing out a number here at, $500,000. The market is just not, rendering that sort of number right now. So the first thing I like to do is just educate the seller, let them know this is where we are with the numbers. I know this is what you would like, but this is where we are. If we list at this price, what we don't want to do is we don't want it to stay on too long because again, then you begin to lose power, negotiating power, I should say, in that particular arena. But when it comes to like clutter, I just kind of, what kind of home would you like to walk into when you're viewing? Because, you're selling in some scenarios, you're just selling and you're, I don't know, just completely relocating and maybe renting somewhere. But in some scenarios, you're selling to purchase another home. So that means you're looking for another home. And when you're looking for another home, what are you looking for? Do you want to see, this kind of clutter here? Or do you want to, a certain level of cleanliness when you're walking through your home? So I more so ask them a question and have them answer it. And then kind of go off of that, as opposed to, going in and saying, you need to move this, you need to decolor that, you need to do that. That's just not going to work for everyone, because again, it's, this someone's property is like their baby, that's their thing. So, they're really passionate about it. And, whenever someone has passion about something, you definitely want to, proceed with caution. So, one of my strategies in terms of helping someone who may have some clutter going on, ask them, what type of home would you like to walk through? Do you think that this would be appealing to the buyer? How quickly do you want to sell your home? So a lot of people, less clutter, and if it shows better, it's probably going to sell quicker. So, just kind of go over those things with the seller.
Somebody sent the question. My house
Mhm.
was on the market for 30 days and the agent said I should drop my sale price. Is that because it was not enough movement or because the value of my home wasn't worth it?
So it could be two different reasons. Just speaking generally, one, I would be curious to know, what the home was currently listed for, and then I would personally want to do a comparative market analysis. That's what I
Mhm.
would want to do. So what that is, for those who don't know, is what you're doing is you're looking at different homes in that area that have similar demographics,
Mhm.
similar amount of bedrooms, similar amount of basement or things like that, square footage. And the first thing that I would check to see is what was it overpriced as opposed to where the other homes are in that area. That could be one big reason why a home would be on the market much longer than it needs to be. Because if your house B, and there's A, B, and C, house A to your left is selling for $500,000, and house C is selling for $550,000, but you're listing yours as $700,000.
Wow.
A good agent is going to go in and they're going to say no, that we're not going to buy it. So that could be one reason why it
Mhm.
was on the market for that long. And then kind of going back to what I just mentioned, the homes have been staying on the market a little longer, just because that's kind of where we're at right now with the market. So it may not be anything the agent may have done wrong at all. It's just simply the market, and then
Mhm.
how they're marketing it as well, So I always try to strategize how I'm going to market my homes when I come across a listing too. So, marketing is so important. Are you offering sellers concessions? If there's a part on the system that we all look at as agents, and there is a field on there that says, sellers concessions, yes or no. And if you are not offering sellers concessions, and for those who may not know what that is, that's a amount of money that the seller would contribute for the buyer in terms of
Right.
repairs or closing costs, that sort of thing. We go back to the market. So if you have a buyer who needs assistance and you're not offering any assistance at all, that's going to be very unattractive. And I know for me, because I know my buyers and everyone's different and everyone comes with their own different scenario. If I have a buyer and I know they need assistance and it's indicated as no seller's concessions, I'm going to let them know, hey, we're not going to get any assistance on this. So this may not be a good look for you, or it may not be a good option for you. So
Yeah.
that could be another reason why,
For
but
this.
there could be a number of reasons why it could be sitting on, the market for that amount of time. I usually don't like to have my homes on the market for that long. So
Right.
I'm a pretty aggressive advertiser. So, and then again, from the jump, if you're pricing it competitively, and I know that sounds so cliche, but it's true. Going back
Right.
to the homes A, B, and C. If you're home B and home A is selling for 500,000 and home C is selling for 550, why not sell yours for 525? I can assure you, yours is going to get purchased before the other two are purchased. So it just
Right.
all depends on your scenario and what you're trying to walk away with.
Right. And folks, you see Angelita's number going down on the screen. Reach out to her 302-387-7614. Drop her a line, ask those questions, have that conversation, because it's good to have the conversation before you start listing your home, before you thinking about going out there and buying, so you can have an understanding, or drop her an email at info@soldbyangelita.com. Because the worst thing you can do is not have the education and the understanding that you need when you're going out here in this market to do it. Also, look at following her on Instagram at It's Angelita Mosley, or on Facebook, because you'll find some interesting comments. She might have some dialogue that might be useful to you. So you can't be like, oh, I didn't know about that. This is interesting to me. And be able to communicate those things and understand why the market changed, why it fluctuates. Because if you don't understand where we're at in the market, we're going to go out there with blinders on and we're like, why is this happening? I got 7 offers I submitted and not one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, we're submitting seven offers. That's 7 homes that you absolutely love and you're submitting offers for that you're not getting. We definitely need to sit down and re-strategize for sure. For sure. And again, that's not something that would, fall on you as a buyer when you're submitting those offers. That's where I would come in to kind of help you look at your scenario and the homes that you're submitting and look at, what's kind of going on with that property, having a conversation with that agent. And the ultimate goal is getting you to the settlement table. So kind of figure out, what are the needs of your seller? This are the needs of my buyer. How can we meet each other in the middle? Because you want to sell your home and my buyer wants to buy your home. How can we make it happen? So we're essentially all on the same team. We essentially have the same goal here. And that's settlement. Seriously, that's the settlement table, so.
And that's what we want to do. Somebody said, will I be working with you directly or a team? There's nothing more frustrating than getting comfortable with an agent and then seeing someone new at every meeting. And I know that we have teams in real estate. We have teams because we have so many people we attend to. But Angelina can tell you that, when it starts to get busy and you get that attention, we want to make sure that somebody's tending to you. But if you have that direct conversation, say, hey, Angelina, I don't want to work with your personal assistant. That's important to me.
Listen, I totally understand you and me. I'm free spirited and I say what I want to say most of the time. I have an orthodontist, so I have my Invisaligns on right now. But in my orthodontist office, there's like 3 or 4 of them. And I am just a creature of no. I want to work with the same one because the last time I was here and I asked them that question, like they recall that and they're getting to know me and I'm getting to know them. So I am a huge advocate for, if you start with me, you finish with me. And even in between, like if you have questions, you will get me directly. So to answer your question, no, I don't work with other team members per se, if I can say it like that. I don't have that. It's just me. So, I'm going to be your point of contact for everything. And I actually like to be really the liaison for everything. So because some people, Johnny, I'm sure you know that they're nervous. They're nervous about talking to the lender. They don't really know them, but they know me. Or they're nervous about, calling, an attorney's office about something. They don't know them, but they know me. So I will be that liaison. Like I always tell people, the only number you need is mine. That's it. And I'm going to connect you with, the appropriate individuals for your scenario.
And we have another question. So what is the average time that you should wait before you drop the price on your home? Is there an average time?
So that's a good question. So I think that one really largely depends on like your urgency, what you need. I work with military families as well, where they need to sell their home ASAP because they know they're going to be relocating. So in a scenario like that, for my strategy anyway, I would be a little more aggressive. So for them, and again, everybody's scenario is different, but in a scenario like that, well, I know you need to have it done and gone in 30 days. I'm probably going to revisit the price around 2 weeks for that scenario, for that particular scenario. But then you may have another person where, yes, I do need to sell it, but there isn't an urgency to sell it, but obviously I want to sell it. And again, me keeping in mind that we certainly don't want it to stay on the market too long, because at that point in time, that begins to strengthen the buyer's position. And we don't want to do that when I'm representing the seller. We don't want to do that. So, it just largely depends on your scenario. But typically, if it's a standard scenario where it's not a situation where you have to sell immediately, I may look into revisiting it maybe around week 3, like day 21. I'll look into maybe dropping the price right around there. That's a sweet spot. Because again, anything after 30 days, I'm not saying that, the buyer gains all power, but anything after 30 days, if I'm representing the buyer, I'm looking at the house like, your home has been on the market for 30 days. So let's figure this out here. So I would, to answer your question, I would say for a standard scenario, nothing out of the ordinary, maybe around day 21 is when I would revisit, decreasing the price.
So somebody said, is it a good idea to take it off the market and put it back on, or would you be looking desperate about that if you did that?
So the system that we use, like you can list the home, you can have it on the market, let's just say for 60 days. If you take it off the market for a week, the way our system is set up where it's not like it's a reset in the time, but it will have like like if your home's been on market for 45 days, you take it off, you put it back on, there's going to be a 1, a dash, and a 45 because it was currently on the market for 45 days. So in terms of what we see as agents, like we know when you take your home off the market and when you put it back on, you know, in terms of it, you know, weakens your position. It depends on the home. It just really does depend on the home, you know, because if you had to take it off where, you know, you needed to get some septic issues resolved and you bring it back on and brand new septic system, like, great. I'm glad you took it off the market because now, you know, my buyer doesn't have to worry about the septic system, you know? So I think it largely depends on why an individual is taking it off and putting it back on. And those things can be indicated in the notes. You know, notes that you can see sometimes and notes that we see oftentimes. Again, it could be an issue with your roof and, you know, you want to take it off the market until you get that remedied and you put it back on then. That's a good reason to take a home off the market because when you put it back on, then you kind of can increase the value of the home and it's more attractive to the buyers as well. So.
So that's interesting. You know, sometimes people think they take it off because they don't have no attention and then they like, if I take it off and I put it back, it look like it's brand new.
It would look brand new to the public, but it won't look brand new to us. And remember, we're the ones who are negotiating for you. So I'm going to see it regardless because of the system that we use. I'm going to be able to research that. But the public may not see that, but I am. And if I see it, then I kind of already know it's been done. So, you know, I don't know if there's a way of hiding that.
Yeah. Somebody said, how long do you usually work with buyers from first visiting to closing?
Oh my gosh.
How long does it take?
Sure. As long as it has to take, honestly. I mean, it depends on where the individual is. Again, some people call and they have no idea. They have no idea that they may need to meet a certain credit standard and they may not be at that credit standard yet, but they're getting there, you know? So what I'm never going to do is I'm never going to say, go get your credit score together and then come back and talk to me. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with you. I'm going to help you strategize and figure out ways to meet that standard, whatever it is, your credit standard or your down payment standard, whatever standard that is. I'm going to help you, you know, meet that standard. So if that takes 3 months, okay. If it takes 6 months, okay. You know, but what I'm not a bit in the business of doing is only entertaining those who are ready to go. Like that's just not fair. I treat people like people. I treat people the way I want to be treated. And I will never want to be dismissed because I'm not ready at the moment. You know, some people have great intentions and they're going to get there. They just need direction. They just need direction. And that just goes back to my educating point where I'm going to, you know, educate you on what needs to be done.
Another thing, can you explain the process of buying a distressed property? They seem cheaper.
They seem cheaper. So it depends on why are you buying the distressed property? Is it because you are an investor and you're looking to put some money into it? Or are you looking at the distressed property because you are looking for a lesser expensive route to purchase a home? If you do that, then you're looking at a distressed property that's going to be more than likely sold as is. That means that you will get no assistance whatsoever to remedy that home or bring it up to your standard. And then on top of that, you're going to have to put money into it. So it really depends on, you know, why you're looking at that distressed property. I mean, if you're an investor, I welcome investors. Then sure, you know, we can find one where it depends on what your goals are. You know, how much money are you looking to spend on that investment property? How much are you looking to put into it, I should say, you know? So if you're looking to do that, then there's one that's a separate route that we would take for a buyer. Because not all, and Johnny can speak to this, not all the time when you get funding for those properties. So it really depends on what sort of loan product you're using, but it may not be a property where you're going to be able to get funding. You may have to be a cash buyer or you're in a position to be a cash buyer. So, you know, that kind of depends on your particular scenario.
And that's important so y'all know. So anytime you buy distressed properties, you might need a 203K loan if you're buying something that you're going to live in. And the reason why you got to have that house in livable condition for when somebody's going to purchase that loan, for when they're going to go and figure out, hey, you living in this, we can do a 203K loan we're going to make sure that house is ready. It's a FHA loan. So it's have to be health and wealth right there. Everything's in tip top shape. So when you're going at distressed properties, I always encourage people that, you got to have a licensed contract. You got to make sure they HUD certified. You got to have a scope of work. You got to find out the after repair value. It's so many things designed in there to where you have to say, okay, am I fit for this? And do I have the people in place to do it? You might go to Angelique and say, hey, Angelique, I seen a property, and she probably ask you have a contractor, what are we going to do with this? And you got to have that. And it's not that we don't want to help you, but if you don't have that plan, we're not going to be able to reach your goals of what you want to do. And our goal is, as Angelique said, get to the table. You got to get to the table. You got to own the house, but we got to have that. Somebody asked a question, what is the comparative market analysis you mentioned earlier? Could you explain that?
Sure. So an abbreviation for that is CMA. So whenever you hear someone say CMA, they're referring to a comparative market analysis. And that is kind of what it says. So, like, you're comparing different homes in the market and analyzing those numbers or analyzing the characteristics. So if you live in a neighborhood and there are 5 homes and you want to sell your home, what I would do is I would look at the value of the other homes in the area, and then we would determine that helps determine what the approximate value of your home would be. I will know a very close up value of what that would be, once I walk in and see what kind of upgrades and stuff you have like that. But that analysis is going to come into place when you're just looking at all the other homes in that area. It's usually in a smaller scope to get a better idea. And, again, seeing what the value of those homes are, and then seeing, what we should be paying for your home, or from a buyer's perspective, or from a seller's perspective, what we should be listing your home as. So it's just comparing your homes to other homes in the area.
And that's important, so you'll know the values that she's planning. And you're searching for a home because you don't want somebody that's selling you a home for $400,000 and these houses in the area go for like $325 because it's not going to appraise for that. And I tell folks always remember, I don't care how nice you make your house, how eloquent, if you're in an area, that's what we go off of. When you have an appraisal, you're going to have those steps.
That's a very good point too. And the appraisal too, when it comes to individuals who are interested in listing, again, what's valuable to you, you may think that it's valued at $500,000, but the final say comes in when the appraiser comes in. If he says that, sorry, we're only going to value this at $425,000, you could still possibly sell it to $500,000, but that person is going to have to pay that difference, because the lender is only going, and Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, the lender is only going to loan you up to that appraisal amount. So anything over that buyer would be responsible for paying the difference. And, some people are able to do that, but most people right now are not able to do that. So that appraisal is the final say. And also, again, that's why it's so important to, list your home at the most accurate number as possible when you're listing it. Because again, you don't want to overdo it. I get it. It's important to you. I'm sensitive to that, but I think the reason why you called me is because you want to sell. So I got to help you get to the table and sell your home.
Somebody asked a question. So is that the gap funding that they talk about when we're writing a contract? So, and I think they're trying to ask the gap clause, where if they don't come in at the value, that they have to cover the difference.
Yeah, that's
what she's talking about. So if the bank's not going to give it to you, and you tell Angelina, well, I'll cover if it don't come in, I'll cover up to $15,000 over what it comes up to, she'll have to write that in a contract. Let them know that, hey, the buyer's willing to come up if it don't settle. And that's a good negotiation, that conversation you have with the lender and Angelina. Say, hey, if it don't, I got this money here. I got $40,000, but if this house don't come in at $350,000, I can cover up to that 350 within $15,000 or $7,000 or whatever it might be.
And then, like Johnny said, that's an excellent negotiating or strategy to use as well. Like whenever you have a buyer that comes in and they're able to, compensate for that gap, sellers want to see that's the goal. We want to see, that there's someone who can pay me what I'm asking for my home, irregardless of, what the appraiser might say.
Yeah. Somebody said, what if you have an appraiser and you know that the price that you're given is not a correct price? What do we do?
Can you challenge that, Johnny?
We can challenge it, but we got to have comparables.
You have to have comparables to do that. And the appraiser, they are licensed at what they do, meaning they have went through training, on doing those analysis. So usually if they say that's what it is, usually they're right. And kind of like what Johnny said, if you do challenge that, you're going to have to basically say, hey, this is the information that I have as opposed to what you have. And then I'm assuming, Johnny, on your end as a lender, you guys would have to, look at both and figure out which one you're going to go with. So.
And what I tell folks off the hand, if you think that you're going to have an issue with that, lay those comps out. A lot of folks don't do that. Lay those comps out. And you can ask Angie, give me some comps so I know when we're bidding for this, that we want to be in the right frame of mind here and have that understanding so you don't go in there over. Somebody wrote, they did it to my son because the guy was a racist. They came back and with a good price, sent another appraiser. So that does happen sometime when we fight that and they're not doing some true values. We had that happen in Maryland too, where we contested it and the price came up. But once we have those comparables and we have that documentation, I always tell leave those comparables there so when the appraiser comes, so he can have some information. So when he's doing his homework, he'll know where we're coming from with this price.
Right.
For it. And it won't be like a wow moment. I go, wow, this
right.
thing is not even close to it. And somebody asked the next question here. What are the potential pitfalls with selling or buying? What can I set myself up for?
Potential pitfalls. I mean, it comes with pricing, was it priced, inaccurately, starting off, that's a big thing. Again, you don't want to get into the habit of decreasing the price on homes. You can do it. It's a tool. Obviously, you're free to do it. But again, it's all about optics and how does that look? Why are they decreasing the price on this home? So that could be one particular, pitfall, for a seller. For a buyer, it depends on what position you're coming in. Do you have, what are you trying to accomplish and what do you have to make that work, if I can say that? So not coming in or having your negotiations ready to get the property that you're looking for, that could be a potential pitfall, like not being ready to rebuttal or not being ready to counter, something like that, if I can say it like that, So for a buyer, it's more of, are you, what position are you in to purchase? And what tools do you have that we can use when it's time to negotiate? And then, like I said, for a seller, I think largely with the most pitfalls that I see is homes, again, it's wonderful that you value it at that, but we got to go with the market is valued at. And if it's not, then that's going to create a problem. So that could be a potential pitfall as well.
Yeah. Pitfalls can happen too with losing your job in the middle of the process, not knowing about layoffs, not making purchases and not keeping everybody in the loop,
making purchases.
You have to let us don't do anything during the process, because we have to stay within those guidelines, because the underwriter is looking at the file as we see it from the beginning. I know that furniture is going to be on sale, that sauna you've seen, that pool, all that stuff going to pop up on sale, and it's going to
on sale weeks before settlement. Weeks before settlement.
Don't touch it, and ask them, say, hey, before I do anything, let me go talk to my lender and see what they think about this, because those things can take you to the where you bought yourself out of a house. You bought that furniture and they said it's not going to affect you. It's not going to show up for 60 days on your credit report. But there's so many things we have now, AI and automatic with the credit bureaus. So from a lending standpoint, we see it when it comes through. We get an alert, of, oh, boom, we have a new purchase. It'll come across an email. You're like, purchase, and it's not your home, and you have to call that person and say, hey, did you just buy some? Oh, no, I put a deposit and they ran my credit. So when I'm finished the house, well, that credit thing is going to trigger to where we're going to need to know what that monthly payment's going to be.
And never listen to them. Always listen to us. Like,
right.
They're going to do whatever they have to do or tell you whatever they have to tell you to make their sale. Right.
Right.
So don't ever, respectfully, I wouldn't listen to them. I would probably, again, defer to myself or defer to Johnnie and ask them, this is what I'm looking to do. What should I do? Because again, they're always going to look out for themselves to get that sale.
Absolutely. And it said, how will you determine what homes may match my wants and needs? How do we come up to that?
Sure. Just communication. Us having a conversation about that. I ask specific questions, very specific questions. Do you have children? I'm asking you because I care about your kids, but I'm also asking you because school districts come into play. Are you, what sort of school district would you like your children to be in? So for me, it's asking my buyers, my clients, very detailed questions. It may just be you and your dog, and you are saying, just 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Everyone says that, right? But maybe I can get you a great deal with a 2-bedroom and 1-bath, since it's just you and a dog. Now, if you're planning to expand that family, within the next year or so, then that's a different conversation that we're going to have. So for me, it's just asking detailed questions. And it's not to get into your personal affairs, but it's more so that I can know what exactly you're looking for and not over inundating you with things that you're not looking for.
Right. And that's very important to understand, that, the needs of what you have. And because Angelita's sending you houses through your emails and you're sitting there and you're like, what is this? This is what the conversation was, and this is what made sense of what you were looking for. And this is what's on the market. So it's not that it's not there or, they trying to pick, that's what's available right now. That's what's happening out there. And you might not like it. That's why we send it to the email. And then you have a call, say, hey, I like this house, or nah, that one's not going to do good, or it might not work for me. But folks, you see the number going across the screen, 302-387-7614. Reach out, ask those questions, dig into those resources, because what's the most important purchase in your life is a home, whether it's your primary or it's your secondary home for it and everything. We have to make sure that we have the right things in place. We have the right stuff happening, and we have to think about what we're doing. Everything's about conversation. And then we have at Angelita Mosley Instagram. She's on Facebook. Go look at some of those posts. Look at some of those homes she sold. Look at and kind of analyze and say, hey, this was kind of good. And what was good about that house? How did they get that land? How did they get this? For it, or the emails going across the screen, info@soulbyangelita.com. Those are contacts. Those are resources. As I tell y'all every week, I'm going to provide y'all with the resources necessary to fulfill those needs. Everybody has the time to kind of interview the person. This is when you talk to Angelita, you're doing an interview, say, hey, you just my needs. And you might say, I'm a little needy, Angelita. And she's like, okay, I get it. Just tell me what you need so I can provide you that. But you have to have that clear communication. You have to have that resource that you can articulate what you want to happen, and it's not frustrating to you when you get out here, because the worst thing to do is not understanding what you're doing, not understanding what's happening
For such
for
a large purchase.
for
For such
such
a large
a
purchase.
large purchase,
It's
and you
huge.
get in the house, and then
Mhm.
you go down the line and you don't like the house, and you back on it. You really don't have enough equity to sell and go do all of that. So we have to be mindful of what we're doing out here and how we're doing it and everything. But it's good. That's another thing. And I said it weeks ago. That's why we pay our realtors. They work hard behind the scenes to find those deals that are necessary so you can get into the perfect home. So when you see this commission, it's not, wow, that was 30 days. No, that was 180 hours. that was probably 360 hours. That might have been 2,080 hours if you did for a whole year, that they earn for that to keep you in there and was attentive to you. They answered your phone calls, they answered your emails, they were still sending listens to you, they were checking on you, they drove around and seen houses, they did showings. It was so much that happened that at the final end, this is what we see. This is why we sign a buyer's agreement. It's a commitment, folks. It's a relationship. And we all have to dig into relationships and commitments if we in here. This is entrepreneurship. So in entrepreneurship, Angie have to have her model of what she's going to do in her model for her business. And when she does it, people have to respect that model and get there. Folks, I am so excited y'all had the opportunity to ask those questions, but I'm going to let y'all know, y'all see the number going across the screen. Y'all have the email, y'all have the Facebook, y'all have the Instagram. I mean, I'm excited. Andy, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart that you came and provided
Thank
this
you.
for us. And
Thank you for having me.
last comments for our audience. Feel free to go.
Yep. And again, you all can also reach out to me on Messenger. I know some people are a little shy.
Right.
You can also reach out to me on. I don't know what the difference is between text and messaging. I don't know, but people tend to gravitate towards that at first. That's okay. So you
Right.
can also send me a message on Messenger too. Again, with any questions, you may not be ready to purchase today, next month, or 6 months from now. But if you just want to get information on how to prepare, please feel free to reach out to me. I am so happy to help. I love this.
Yeah. Folks, another week, another great Tuesday, another entrepreneur you've seen that took the step, made the move, and guess what? Here to provide a service that you can't ever believe. We're going to keep doing it over and over for this Creative Financing with JB. Another Tuesday. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see y'all again next